I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Well, you know, I moved here from St. Louis in a decision that took me 5 minutes to make. And St. Louis has many beautiful things. And one of my favorite places to go in St. Louis is the Butterfly House. This is a 8,000 square foot glass conservatory where there are over 40 different types of butterflies. And they're all flying loose in this conservatory. And so they're flying around and they can land on you and you can get up close and personal to them. It's really amazing. In fact, I'll show you a couple of the butterflies from there. I love that one. Wow. And when I was with a group of friends in the Butterfly House, and we just walked in and we're kind of in awe of this huge place. And the ranger comes up to us, and the ranger says, you know, please be careful. If a butterfly lands on you, don't brush it off. Because in brushing it off, you could break its wings or its legs. And a friend of mine that was there said, gosh, you know, this is a brand new shirt. He said, I would be upset if a butterfly landed on me and pooped. And the ranger said, well, butterflies don't poop. And they only live for 2 weeks. And they don't have the ability to eliminate waste. And my friend said, no wonder they only live for 2 weeks. How long could you live if you couldn't eliminate what you needed to get rid of? But the truth of it is, butterflies do eliminate waste. And because and I know some of you are Googling this right now, and so they do eliminate, but because they only eat nectar, they only eliminate fluids, according to my careful calculations. And if you know otherwise, feel free to let me know after the service. Or not. Because I don't want you to ruin my story, right? I don't want to think if I ever tell this story again, in the back of my mind I'm playing this tape that, oh, this really isn't true, right? So let me believe my stories. At least that one. I don't think it is too detrimental to my character. So in Genesis chapter 19, verses 15 and 17, the author writes, when morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. But he lingered, so the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, and the Lord being merciful to him. And they brought him forth and set them outside the city. And when they had brought them forth, they said, flee for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Flee to the hills, lest you be consumed. Well, then the Lord rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities. And even what grew on the ground was destroyed. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. It's a classic story of Lot and his family from the Old Testament. And the angels speak to Lot, and they tell him, this is what you shouldn't do. They tell his family, don't do this. But Lot, I feel like I'm really sensitive today. There we go. But Lot hesitated. You ever hesitate when an angel speaks to you or you get a divine idea, right? And you ever go, oh, maybe not so much. Maybe I'm going to say what's on my mind anyway. Even though you get this little dialogue that comes in your mind that says, don't say that. Right? But you get this energy that goes, oh, yeah, I got to get even for something, right? I got to let this out. I got to burst it out. And then afterwards you go, dang, why did I say that? Ever happened to you? No. Well, that's what this story is about. It's about letting go of that desire to try and get even, letting go or holding on to the things of the past that don't serve us anymore. Because looking back or holding on to the way that things were gets us stuck, right? If we ever say, oh, gosh, I wish I was young again, or remember the good old days, when we had vitality and health and love and everything was easy. But as soon as we do that, we get stuck in what was the past. Lot's wife became a pillar of salt. Now, salt, especially in those days, was a preservative. So what happens when we get stuck in the past? When we look back, we become preserved in what used to be. We become preserved in the past. So we're not able to let go and be present in this moment because we are living in the past. So let's look at the metaphysics of this story. Metaphysics, we look at the metaphysics, we're looking at the deeper meaning. What does this story mean to me? What does it mean to you? Now, I'm going to tell you my metaphysical interpretation of it. You may have your own, others may have their own, but this is how this story strikes me. So we're looking at the deeper meaning. What does this mean for me? Well, so morning dawn, this scripture begins with morning dawn. And that means that this is a new day. It's a new time. It's a new spiritual lesson that's coming into our awareness. Maybe not for the first time, but it's the first time right now. There's a newness that's happening. And then the angels spoke to Lot and spoke to Lot's family. And angels represent those little divine ideas that often whisper to us and say, don't say it. Hold back. You don't have to be sarcastic right now. You don't have to show everyone how smart you are right now. You can hold your tongue, right? And you'll experience much more love and much more peace if you listen to the divine ideas, to the angels. Lot lingered. Lot lingered like we often linger when we get a divine idea and we're driven forward by this emotion, by this ego, by this desire to be right, which you said you never felt it. And I worship you, my friend. And I hope that someday you'll tell the total truth. Because we all do that, don't we? It's kind of our human nature to even though we know the truth, it's like, I just got to get this out, right? You think if I don't get it out, it's going to come out some other place, right? So, boom. And we linger in that place of not knowing, in that place of being preserved in the past. Fire rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah. Ever feel like there's fire in your life? Ever, when you say the thing that you wish you hadn't said, do you notice how hot it gets? You ever feel your temperature rising, right? It's like, oh, man, I wish I hadn't said that. And the temperature goes up, and you're feeling it, and the person that you're dealing or working with or trying to love is feeling it too. And you just get this burning, fiery sensation, and it feels like you are crumbling. So Lot's wife looked back, And she became a pillar of salt. This is when we get consumed by our emotions, by our feelings, by our negative thoughts, when we don't listen to the divine ideas of Spirit, when we don't listen to the angels in our lives. You know, life has natural ups and downs. Notice? And these ups and downs that we experience are here for our spiritual awakening. Yippee! Isn't that great? and we can either take advantage of them or we can try and ignore them. But what I've noticed is if I take advantage of them, and I let go, and I can be with them, things happen so much easier. But on the other hand, if I try and resist them, then all my personal fears come up, which are eventually going to lead me to the same lesson. But why didn't I just let go in the first place? Why did I make myself have to deal with a difficult situation when it wasn't really necessary? Because often it happens when I follow that emotion and feel like that emotion is real and something that has to be released, other than doing the real work, which is just about letting go, letting God, instead of thinking that I have to be God and tell this person what I think, yeah, or lash out in hurtful ways. You know, life can be either exciting or frightening. I think it can be exciting when we let go and let God, when we open ourselves to that experience and just say, okay, this is what is. Wow, it's time for a change. It's time for me to change my perspective, to change the way that I'm thinking and be present in the moment and let go. Or not. Or I can choose not to let go, and then I can enter into some other kind of higher level, fiery, difficult situation, which happens when we don't listen, when we don't listen to the angels, and we operate out of fear and out of ego. So, who said that the way life naturally unfolds is not right? Who said that? We did. Fear says that. Our fear says this is not right. This situation is not right. I want to make it be something else. And when we come from that place of thinking that me, Blaine, your personality has to make something different than what it is, that's when we run into resistance, right? And that's when we run into struggle. So the way to get through this is to know that as you grow spiritually, you will realize that your attempts to protect yourself from your problems actually create more problems. Rather than facing them initially and letting go and living into them. And really the opportunity for us is not to fight with life. To decide, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is God's will. Whatever it is God's will. Even if we don't like it, it's God's will because it is what it is. So we can let go and live. Let go and be powerful. Let go and open our hearts. Open your heart, your mind to the truth of what is in the moment. Fear is caused by blockages in the flow of your life. When we are in the flow, we face less fear because we can be in the moment and say, okay, this is what is. I'm in the flow. Here I am. I'm trusting in God to be God in my life. I know that my highest possibility is showing up for me right now. And if we don't want to do that, if we want to pay attention to the fear, then we can realize that fear also causes the blockages in our life. Because as soon as we're afraid, we send out an energy, and you ever notice that when you're afraid that you don't operate from your highest self? Right? Because when we're afraid, we get into this fight or flight place in our consciousness. And if we can just let go of that and let go of the fear, we can be in that place where we can operate from our spirit, from our truth, from our knowingness. And again, it comes back to letting go and letting God. And to trust. I believe that the purpose of spiritual evolution is to remove the blockages that cause fear. That, to me, that is the spiritual journey. The purpose of the spiritual awakening that we are all working on is to remove the blockages that cause fear, so that we can become the powerful beings that we are. I think it's that simple. Isn't that why we come to Unity and to New Thought churches? Because we teach principles that help us to remove the fear in our life so we can come forward and be the truth that we are, unobstructed by fear. True for you. One person. Well, Mary, I think that was you. Okay. All right, so let me write this down. I know what my talk's going to be about next week. But think about that. The purpose of our spiritual journey is to remove the blockages that cause us fear. That's it. How does it get any simpler than that? Isn't that why we do this work? Because we want to be the fullness that we are. The presence of God within us, that Spirit within us, has given us this opportunity of life. And it wants to live through us in the most powerful way. All we get to do is get out of the way. Just get out of the way. Let God be God. Let your spirit in you be the presence that operates in your wheelhouse, that is in charge of the direction of your boat. Wow. That's what I want. You? We're getting there. We got 3 that time. I'm working on this crowd. I tell you, we're working it today. So, when that stuff that holds you down comes up, when those buttons get pushed, when you feel that pain in your life, allow yourself to feel it. Because what we feel is a lesson for us. What we think, what we feel, are lessons for our spiritual growth. So pay attention to them. And if they create an emotion, it's a place where your spirit is asking to be healed. So you might want to bookmark that when it happens and say, oh, there's something showing up for me here. Lot's wife, turning into a pillar of salt, is representative of what happens to us when we get immersed in disturbing thoughts, when we get consumed by disturbing feelings, when we get embedded in difficult situations, and our energy becomes stuck, and it can seem as if we have fallen into darkness because we have gone unconscious, because we have gone into that fearful, preserved place of what's not real in the moment. And our spirit is calling us forth to wake up. The times when we feel like we've fallen asleep is when Spirit is gently nudging us and saying, wake up. So, let go. Don't fall. Let go. Whatever it is. Don't fall into the darkness. Don't fall into the unconscious. Wake up. There's a message here. There's something to be learned. Let go. Don't fall. There's a story that I like about two monks, and they're traveling together and they're walking, and they come up to this rushing river. And standing beside the river is a beautiful woman, and she's wanting to cross the river, but she doesn't feel that she can. So the two monks look at each other. Now they've taken a vow not to touch a woman. So they look at each other, and the older one just shrugs his shoulders, and grabs the woman and puts her on his back. And he walks across the river, through the river, and lets her down on the other side, and then continues on his journey. A little while later, the younger monk joins him, and the younger monk is fuming. And they don't speak for an hour. They don't speak for 2 hours. They don't speak for 4 hours. And finally, the younger monk says, we monks have taken a vow not to touch a woman. And you picked up that woman and put her on your back and took her across the river. And the older monk looked at the young monk and said, brother, I set her down on the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying her? So let go. Don't fall into the darkness of unconsciousness. Let go. Don't be preserved in your past. Be present here, right now. Your spirit, that God expression within you, is calling you forth to be all that you can be. So when you face difficulty and challenges, rather than letting it get bottled up inside you, let go. Let God be God in you. And you will be the magnificent essence of spirit that you are called to be. So let go. Don't fall. I let go and let God be God in my life and in the lives of my loved ones. Let's whisper that together. I let go and let God be God in my life and in the lives of my loved ones. And I invite you to close your eyes. And breathe in and breathe out. Breathing into the oneness that you are. Into the fullness of life. Into the spirit of truth, the spirit of peace, the spirit of joy. All that you are. Imagine being free. Imagine letting go. Letting go of the doubt and the fear. Letting go of wanting to control or the need to dominate. Just let go. Breathing in and breathing out. Letting go. Let God be God in you. Let Spirit fill you with a knowingness, a desire, the peace. Knowing that all that you do and everything that you do is done with love. That you don't have to push the river. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing into a new freedom to let go. To be the river. Let go. Don't fall. Let God be God in your life as you. Breathing in and breathing out. And I invite you to gently bring your awareness back to this moment. And let God